Done. Just tap it. That's on. Testing. The same thing, just tap it and it'll go green. Now you're on, then you're off.
And then there he is. Do this.
Yep.
If you're not here, are you still sick?
I
This
just
is
started
on when
not
it's
feeling
green.
great. I've just been sneezing.
Testing.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like leave you guys high and dry.
Okay.
I'll keep on planning it.
All right, welcome everybody. So exciting night tonight. Let me go over our usual announcements. Welcome. Anybody new? No new people. Gosh, I get emails regularly through the week. People saying, "Hey, I'm interested in photography, and I do everything I can to sell them," and they never show up. Anyway, maybe I need to do better at that. So we've got a big competition happening next Friday. It's of course already closed out as far as the deadline. But just again, encourage you to come to those. I know that you could watch it for home, but if you remember what it was like when you first entered a competition, it's kind of nice to have some moral support. And then next week, we've got a print competition, the creative and pictorial. And after tonight and those two, that's the end of the competitions for this calendar year. I mean, our club year goes through May, June, but that'll be the last for our calendar year. So we've got some dates here. I had to make one of my first presidential decisions. We're going to be closed November 28th, otherwise known as Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. And we're going to be closed December 26th, which is the day after Christmas, of course. My feeling was it makes it a 4-day weekend. There's probably a lot of people that are going to have out-of-town people coming in for Thanksgiving or Christmas. So enjoy the holidays. Another date, we have selected the date for our cabin fever party. And the Lonsdales are going to be arranging this, and I'm sure they're going to be looking for help in the future. So we don't have any details, and you might think, gee, that's a long ways away. You know what happens after the holidays go? It is an awesome time. How many people have not been to it? Okay, you guys see, it's well attended. You got to come. Richard Ader is going to be our master of ceremonies again. He's really good at that. So just mark your calendar so you don't schedule anything out. I don't want to hear people say, oh, I planned something already. So if you've been noticing anything going around the club, we've done some cleaning out, which is kind of dovetailed with the swap meet we're going to have tomorrow. And so we've established a better library. So if you noticed out in the hall here, this is what you'll see. This is our new library. There were a lot of these books that were tucked away back in the office. Nobody ever goes in there, or at least it shouldn't be in there. So this is our library, and I want you to look at it that way. I've debated, do I make a sign-out sheet where you say, I took this book, and I'm like, you know what? We're all adults here. Pretend that you're taking it out of the library. There are probably some books that have some value there, but I figured if you really want them, you're going to steal them anyway. So just be respectful. Take them at a reasonable time. Figure, 2 to 3 weeks. If things happen, you don't have that time, bring them back. There's just a lot of really good books, and there's some seminal works. So there's some Ansel Adams stuff, and I'm not good with the names, but photographers that you would recognize. So along with that, when I cleaned out the office, we had some awards in there. So we now have our Wall of Fame, which is back, you can tell where it is. It's back by our end of year award winners. So these are awards that John Earl Brown or Bert Klein or the club itself have won. So I figured, you win awards, you want to display them. And as you see on the bottom there, the bottom shelf of that has got old, and I mean old, Through the Darkroom Door. It used to be called Through the Darkroom Door. Now it's just the Darkroom Door, but back then they were being published as books. These are irreplaceable. So we're asking that you don't take them out of the club room. They go back to 1944. So they're valuable to us. There's history. There might be somebody that, I don't know if there's anybody I know. I haven't looked at the 1944 edition, but just be respectful and definitely take advantage and look through them while you're here in the club room. And then this is the last shot. If you've got any images out there, people at home, if you're listening, and you should be here, but people at home, if you've got any images that you forgot about, that you had in competition, that are in those 2 bins, get here tomorrow morning, like by 10 o'clock for the swap meet to pick them up, because they're going to get sold cheap. These go back to 2011. Yeah. And of course, tomorrow is the swap meet, and we need your help tonight. So at the end of the black and white competition, what's going to happen is I need volunteers here, but I really need some, like the muscle that's around here needs to go with Joe Vanacek, wherever he's hiding. He's in the back there. Joe's got the plan to go down the police room. We've got a lot of tables that just have to be, they have to be carried far. They just have to be knocked down and stored. So Joe's going to handle that room. I'll be up here for this one. We got to move the chairs and bring tables into here. We would like to have this. We get enough people helping, it can be done in like 15 minutes. But I would like to have this ready because the people who are selling are coming in at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm not a morning person. It ain't happening. I'm getting up at 6 o'clock. Okay. So, and then now we got our black and white competition. And let me read to you our judges. So first we have Bob Neiman. He's currently based in Delray Beach, Florida. He's exhibited in numerous solo and group juried shows across the U.S. since 1996. He's been published in Lenswork magazine issues 155 and 159. He was a Merit Award winner in the numerous black and white magazine portfolio contests and a winner in numerous single image contests in black and white magazine. He has won recognition in the Black and White Spider Awards and the International Color Awards. His photographic images were included in the 2008 Silver Shots Folio Edition, and he was an Artist Showcase Award winner in the Manhattan Arts International Summer 1998 7th Annual Competition. Bob has been pursuing his passion in photography since 1991. He is primarily self-taught. His personal work includes landscapes, abstracts, man-made objects, interiors, trees, and botanicals. A lot of you probably recognize Steve Manchuk. He's judged here in the clubhouse before. He became interested in photography through his childhood friend and often CPS judge, Glenn Petranek. He bought his first camera in 1967 and soon after set up a home darkroom. He was both a newspaper school and yearbook photographer, and in 1973 attended the Naval School of Photography and spent 4 years in the Navy as an aerial recon photographer. Beginning in 1977, he spent more than a decade working as a part-time wedding, school portrait, and commercial photographer. Steve has been judging for many years, often with Glenn, and he bought his first digital camera in May of 2000. He and Glenn assembled a slideshow of digital works and became advocates of digital photography. The majority of Manchuk's work is from northeastern Ohio, though his favorite away-from-home destination is New England. And finally, we have Daniel Goldberg. He says, I have been interested in photography ever since adolescence when I had a basement darkroom. As a psychologist, the discovery of emotional life has been the guiding beacon for my practice. I have tried to extend this to my photographs by having them convey an emotional tone that runs through the actual visual representation. My photography accomplishments include the following: 2025 publication of Teddy's Restaurant photo book of a local coffee shop in Cranberry, New Jersey, in press. 2024, a 6-photo series published in Legacy's Lenswork publisher. 2018 and 2021, a 6-photo series published in Seeing in 60s Lenswork publisher. By the way, Lenswork, I think we have some of those out in our library. 2020 and 2022, Best Body of Work Award, Phillips Mill Photographic Exhibition, numerous inclusions in juried shows in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, including times when I was given merit awards. Currently, I live in Weechee, Vermont, and am interested in exploring the world of intentional camera movement as a way of exploring the relationship between movement and expression in photography. And with that, you don't have to listen to me anymore. We'll get our slideshow going. Anybody have any questions about announcements or anything? Okay. Do we know if these are comment ones, Dave? That should be Three's a Crowd. Is Eric here? That's Three's a Crowd? Okay, then do we have comments for that?
Yes.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, Stephen says, a unique lineup of observers observing the observer. Clever. The heavily blurred background seems to have been done a bit heavily in post based on the halos. Some of the upper portion of the blurred background could be cropped as it is not interesting in the overall composition.
Eric Botsky, 22 points.
Decaying old interiors are a compelling subject. The ceiling adds interest. The blown out areas in the center bookcase is distracting. Maybe try 2 photos combined with different exposures.
Glenn Petranik, 21 points.
Bob said, nice composition. The tree trunk silhouette adds to the image. I like the clouds behind the tree as another element.
Wally Nell, 23 points, honorable mention.
Stephen says, a good use of the panoramic crop here. The horizon is not dead center, which is a good approach. Exposure is done well, and the layers of distance make this an interesting view to meander through.
Bill Keaton, all along the coast, 21 points.
Daniel says, the symmetry in this photo is wonderful, as is the overall detail. The exposure is perfect, and I like the slight vignetting to highlight the center of the photo.
Susan Bestel, an elegant pair, 24 points, third place.
Bob says, the lone person walking down the path in the redwood forest really makes this image. The artist might consider darkening the trees on the left of the image to make the lone person stand out more.
Joe Smith, Ancient Redwoods, 22 points.
According to Stephen, this is a well-captured exposure-wise for such contrasty light. The foreground is a bit excessive and is not adding interest, so it could be deleted. This wide, faraway view sadly prevents seeing the details in the distant hint of a farm and building. The wide lens view is preventing the observation of details of interest.
Paul Gillia, Antietam Battlefield, 21 points.
Daniel says, the dynamic range is strong. I like the separation of the main subject from the background. I would experiment with other versions of this image so that the main subject is not so squarely in the middle.
Melanie Plummer, Between Light and Shadow, 20 points.
Bob's comment, it's a great moment that you capture. I might lighten the bird a little and darken the background. This would bring the bird forward while making the background less pronounced.
Paul Gillia, Bird Bravery, 23 points, honorable mention.
Stephen says, a concert moment captured well in terms of light and focus. This frozen moment of the performer is made a little less interesting as the face shows little emotion. The crop may be a bit too tight as well and may benefit from a bit more breathing room.
Susan Mahorsic, Chris Isaac in concert, 22 points.
Daniel says, very strong slow shutter speed image. The different layers to the falling water adds interest. I might try cropping about 1/5 of the image on the left to highlight the key part of the photo. I also would take down the highlights in the center of the falling water to increase the detail in that area.
David Karosik, Concord Falls, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bob's comment, the walkway makes a nice leading line into the image. I imagine that what drew you to the image. If yes, then the sky and the hills in the background could be darkened a bit to bring the viewer's eye more strongly to the walkway.
Leslie Nutt, cross with me, 19 points.
Stephen says, silhouettes are often very interesting in revealing stark black shapes against a bright sky. Because the tree branches on the left merge with the center tree, it adds a bit of complexity, confusion, and disturbs what could be a simpler silhouette.
Eric Wethington, dramatic tree, 18 points.
Daniel says, I like how the background fits well with the texture of the elephant's skin. The exposure is well crafted. I wish the elephant's feet were not cut off.
Andrew Garoy, elephant at work, 20 points.
Bob's comment, this is a great capture of a cowboy or a cowgirl herding horses. All the action is in the area of the image. I'm not sure, but this might be infrared image. The trees at the top are very bright, along with the grass at the bottom. By slightly darkening these elements and making the rider and the horses slightly lighter, my eye would be further led into the action of the image.
Gary Merrick, Freeman sheep herder, 22 points.
Stephen's comment, a strong geometric presentation with good tones and sharpness. In terms of composition, I feel the stronger portion of the frame is the left 2/3. Reining in such a strong number of directional elements is not easy. Removing the distractions in the right side of the frame would make this composition simpler, more striking. The strong whites on the right side draw the eye a bit too much.
Ron Wehrman, Galleria, 22 points.
Daniel says, wonderful range of tones, deep blacks along with lighter grays. This is not an easy photograph to get the exposure right, and it is wonderfully done. The door at the bottom adds interest. You might consider cropping the right side of the image to eliminate the lower right part of the photo, which can take your eye out of the main part of the image.
Glenn Petranik, Garfield Monument Stairs, 22 points.
Bob's comment, this is a stunning portrait of this woman. What or who is she looking at? This was either made with a red filter or infrared. Great composition.
Marge Brady, Girl in the Hat, 24 points, third place.
Stephen says, harsh lighting treated quite well with so much shadow and highlight elements. The bright dirt is almost burned out and its glare is unfortunate as the eye gets pulled to the right in this composition. Being a still life, perhaps this could have been a 2-exposure image merged to get the exposure dialed in, especially in the highlights.
David Krosik, Laws Museum, Bishop, California, 23 points, honorable mention.
Daniel says, the narrow depth of field provides sharp focus on the subject. The branch gives it a simple, clear context. I'm compelled to suggest rotating this image 90 degrees counterclockwise. I think a horizontal orientation would make the image stronger.
Jackie Meredith, Living on a Prayer, 21 points.
Bob's comment, this image has a lot of interesting textures with the juxtaposition of the grasses and the stone. Very nice black and white tones. However, I'm not sure what the artist wants me to look at. The grasses, the stone, or the sky.
Leslie Nutt, Modern, 20 points.
Stephen says, wonderful abstract from a literal subject, thanks to capturing the right angle and nailing exposure and focus. The wide-angle lens assumed to be for this image is a good choice in getting the focus right. It straddles reality and the abstract, which makes it that much more interesting.
Kent Hill, Museum Staircase. 26 points, first place.
Yay.
Daniel says, very nice lighting in this image. It would be a stronger image if there were fewer competing elements. The large wheel is clearly the main subject, but I get distracted by the other square, round objects.
Dennis Wirt, Origin Unknown. 20 points.
Bob says, this image has a very nice composition with a strong diagonal from the bird's wing down to the tree. The plain background helps isolation the bird. However, the image is super sharpened, and for me, this distracts from the elegance of the bird.
Rachel Kovacs, Perch, perfect. 24 points, third place.
Stephen says, good lighting and focus choices here. I believe a simpler composition is in order as the right excess of black does not add interest. Possibly a square composition and tilting the flower so the stem is purposely off axis.
Joseph Miko, Poppy Anemone, 22 points.
There is a lovely softness and tenderness to this image. The minimal distance and the direct eye contact with the tigers, cubs, adds to the immediacy of the photo. Also, the lighting and exposure is excellent so that we can focus on the gaze of the two tigers.
Rachel Kovacs, Perfect Companions, 24 points, third place.
Bob says, this is a great image of a bird preening itself, very intimate. You might want to consider lighting the bird's face and eye, as the brightest part of the image is the neck of the bird.
Gary Wood, Regal Turn Preening, 21 points.
Stephen says, neat idea with well-lit foreground and background subjects. The only advice for a more believable composite image is to make the horseman less sharp and reduce its contrast to match the foreground look. It appears a bit more like a post-editing addition when it is too perfect.
Jackie Sayeski, Riding in for Dinner, 23 points, honorable mention.
Daniel says, the sense of space is what strikes me about this image. The runner on the sand helps to animate and add interest. If it were my photo, I would bring out the shadow detail in the rocks and also brighten the runner. I might also play with radical crop, eliminating the left side for the photo, leaving just one rock and cropping a bit off the bottom as well.
Joe Smith, Running Through the Stacks, 19 points.
Bob's comment, very nice composition with these windmills. The fence in the foreground creates a barrier saying not to enter the space. The windmills on the left have one in the background merging with the foreground one. You might consider taking the one in the background out.
Brian O'Riordan, Silent Wind Farm, 22 points.
Stephen's comment, a well-done composition with strong lighting. I would say the black, almost detailless sky could use a bit more detail. Filter choice would certainly help bring a bit more detail in the sky.
Bob Kowalewski, Siloed Silence, 23 points, honorable mention.
This is well exposed and the stairs leads us into the main subject. To strengthen the photo, I would like to have the whole spire in the upper left included. I might have walked 3 steps up or so that more of the building could be seen and not be blocked out by the black railing on the left.
Jennifer Gaba, St. Bernard's Akron, 20 points.
Bob says, this is a nice image of the stairs going into a forest. The sign at the top of the stairs is distracting and would be easy to take out. The stairs in the foreground are the highest part of the image. If the artist wanted the viewer to go up the stairs into the forest, slightly darkening the foreground stairs and slightly lightening the background steps would help a viewer's eye to go up the steps into the forest.
Eric Wethington, Stairway in the Woods, 18 points.
Stephen says, a night panorama long exposure with some star-crossed highlights, an interesting capture. I believe the very blurred sky masses are a bit more of a distraction than an interest point at this chosen shutter speed. The stars on the lights may also be more of a distraction than a point of interest.
Denise Meekins, Streaks in Medina Square, 21 points.
Daniel says, it's great that you used a fast shutter speed to freeze the water so well. I like the joy and spontaneity in the photo. I also appreciate the angle, so the boy is isolated with few background details. I might play with adding some shadow detail to his hair and clothing.
Gary Merrick, Summer Fun, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bob says, this is a nice image of an octopus either in the wild or in an aquarium. The body of the octopus is the brightest area of the image. Consider darkening the sand or the rocks on the bottom of the image so they don't compete with this beautiful creature.
Belinda Prinz, Table for 8, please. 23 points, honorable mention.
Stephen says, a moment captured on a moving train that appears very unposed. To tweak this composition, perhaps half of the door could be cropped out entirely, removing the man from the center. Also add a bit more detail to the uniform if possible.
Lance Mayer, The Conductor, 20 points.
Daniel says, this photo is wonderfully framed as the strength of the mountain in the background fits the position of the elephant, this providing terrific balance to the image. I would lighten the black shadows behind and in front of the elephant and work on the shadow detail in the trees. There was a bit of over-sharpening seen in the line on the trees.
Eric Botsky, The Land of Giants, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bob said, this is a great portrait of this woman smoking a cigar. My eyes went to the look at the expression on her face. However, the background, while interesting, is pulling my eye away from her. Slightly darkening the background would allow the viewer to concentrate on the woman.
Jackie Sieski, The Matriarch, 26 points, first place.
Stephen's comment, an almost unreal abstract composition of a real landscape. The soft lighting adds to the ethereal look. Compositionally, cropping out the lower 1/3 might make this a panorama of greater interest with fewer layers to process.
Bob Govalewski, The Mountain That Remembers, 25 points, second place.
Daniel says, this photo grows on me the more I look at it. It's very interesting to have the fog hide some of the structures. It well explodes and composed. I might work on bringing a bit more detail out of the fog and darken some of the smoke a bit. I might crop the right edge of the photo as it takes me out of the frame, so you'd be left with two major smokestacks.
Neil Linebaugh, The Pulp Mill, 21 points.
Bob says, I like the nice leading lines of the road and path into the image. However, there isn't enough to hold my interest. If the artist had waiting for someone or something to come into the image before making the exposure, it would be more interesting.
Jane Sidney, The Road in Autumn, 18 points.
Stephen says, a dual exposure image that is even more interesting once you take a second and more focused look. The cropping and exposure treatment of the base landscape image are excellent. I am not sure the added texture of the second exposure aids the photo as it obscures details in the treetops.
Brian O'Riordan, Through a Broken Glass Darkly, 21 points.
Daniel says, there's something wonderfully playful and ominous about this photo as the birds are soaring around this building. I would work on bringing out the different shades in the sky. Next time, make sure not to cut off an element at the top of the building, the pole.
Jordan Tetzel, Tower City Vultures, 20 points.
Bob says, this is a nice portrait of a man with attitude. His body stance and eyes say he isn't happy with his photo being taken or he is angry about something.
Kent Hill, Troy, 22 points.
Stephen's comment, an infrared effort that obviously works well with the foliage in this capture. Sadly, the buildings and grounds lack detail, an abundance of dark shadows lacking detail and bright highlights that distract.
Wally Nell, Vermilion Home in Infrared, 19 points.
Daniel says, the fact that they are both staring in the same direction adds to the story of this photo. It's well composed and exposed. The one problem is that they both are not in focus as the closer lion is soft. Depth of field is a challenge with telephoto lenses. A narrower aperture, perhaps aided by a higher ISO, could fix this in the future.
Andrew Garoy, Stalking, 21 points.
Bob says, this is a beautiful action image of two ballet dancers. You caught the peak of the action. Great image, the decisive moment.
Susan Bestel, Artsy Moves, 23 points, honorable mention.
Stephen says, an architectural composition of lines, bright skies, and subtle grays that, although illustrating a man-made structure, needs a center of interest. The bright, burned-out sky draws the eyes away from the patterns beneath them.
Charles K., BC Place Dome in Vancouver, 23 points, honorable mention.
Daniel says, this photo offers us a wide expanse of space. It's well exposed and framed. The challenge is to create more interest, and the amount of water is too dominant. Next time, I would frame the building lower in the photo and have more sky to offer a dramatic counterpoint to the building.
Joseph Miko, Budapest Parliament, 20 points.
Bob says, a beautiful portrait of this woman. The light on her face brings out her eyes. You might consider toning down the light on her shoulder as it is bright as the light on her face.
Kim Wasilewski, Contemplate, 23 points, honorable mention.
Stephen says, an interesting exploded pod, well exposed and reasonably sharp. The distraction in this frame is the busy out-of-focus background. It takes away from focusing on the simplicity of the pod. Perhaps selecting and darkening the background would help bring out the pod better.
Jane Sidney, End of Summer, 22 points.
Daniel says, this is well composed. I love how this man's face is angled and highlighted so well. How he touches his hat adds interest. I also appreciate how he is not completely in the center. I might work a bit on adding more shadow detail in his jacket and sleeve.
Melanie Plummer, Gentleman Ghost, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bob says, this is a classic composition with the church in the center of the image. I'm not sure why there are tents in the foreground, so it's a bit confusing. Are they homeless people? If yes, I want to see a person in the image.
Benjamin Williams, Ale Farm Church, 18 points.
Stephen says, the two dried leaves are lit very well and exposed brilliantly. The only distractions are the elements in the lower portion of the frame. They tend to draw the eyes down and away from the main subjects.
Bill Keaton, Life is Fading, 20 points.
Daniel says, I like how you captured the elephant walking. The dark background allows us to focus on the main subject. It's sharp and well exposed. I would strengthen the photo by cloning out the two pipes going down into the back of the elephant.
Denise Meekins, Majesty, 19 points.
Bob says, this is a beautiful image of a tree in a field. The fence in the foreground tells me I should look but not go into the field. The light in the morning fog in the field is beautiful.
Susan Mahorsick, Misty Morning in South Carolina, 23 points, honorable mention.
Stephen says, a familiar landmark captured in great light and providing great detail and mood. Cropping the windows would simplify the frame a bit. It would be great if a couple or two were exiting the building or sitting at the tables.
Jordan Tussle, Old Harbor Inn, 20 points.
I like the creative spirit to this image, says Daniel. I like the diagonal sharp edge in the middle, as well as the overall mystery of the photo. I have mixed feelings about the out-of-focus branches. On the one hand, it's emphasizing the shallow depth of field, but on the other hand, it can be slightly disharmonious.
Neil Linebaugh, Phase Change, 19 points.
Bob says, this image has a nice black and white tones. The clouds are interesting. It is difficult to see what is happening. I see the ocean and a fisherman. Are these crates that have been used as a break wall? My eyes go to the fisherman, but he is lost in the image.
Brad Nelson Rubensaul, Stormfront Fisherman, 20 points.
Stephen says, great architectural lines, well captured in terms of exposure and sharpness. To improve the overall composition, I would try to move the center of the image where all the lines are flowing up, down, and diagonally, off center, by cropping some of the right or left of the frame.
Catherine Kengott, The Iron Bridge, 23 points, honorable mention.
Daniel says, I appreciate the wide crop to this image. The light adds to the various shades of black and white. The ripple in the sand adds interest and complexity. I would play with different crops. The wide expanse is both a strength and limitation to the image. For a crop suggestion, I would have less sand in the foreground and crop the photo in half, leaving the left side of the photo, and see what this gives you.
Dennis Wirt, Waves, 24 points, third place.
Bob says, this is a nice image with intentional camera movement. The composition is great. My eyes go right to the old windmill. The use of ICM simplifies the image, but not too much.
Jill Zepka, Whisper of Stillness, 20 points.
And that is the end of our black and white. I think we could go right into pictorial.
Is this titled A Swing and a Miss?
No, this
Akron
Akron
Civic
Civic
Theater.
Theater. Is this a no comment? Does anybody have comments on this?
Yeah,
I guess
Yeah.
not.
yeah, there's comments.
Oh, you
here
do?
for it.
Okay.
Okay, Stephen says, well, is this picture a swing and a miss?
No, it's Akron
No, it's
Civic Theater.
Akron Civic Theater.
I guess no comments then.
No
Is
comments,
that
okay.
correct? Okay, Jennifer Gaba, Akron Civic Theater, 20 points. Melanie Plummer, An Enemy, 20 points. Terry Arthur, Autumn Still Life, 22 points. Marge Brady, Blue Beauty, 22 points. Okay, Brad. Brad Nelson Rubensaw, Broken Beautiful, doopy doopy doops. 25 points, second place. There you go, Brad. Dennis Wirt, Catch the Turkey, 23 points, honorable mention. Brad Nelson Rubensaw, Chair Factory Falls, 22 points. Ron Wehrman, Colorful Cheese Grater, 22 points. Denise Meekins, Cutie Hoot, 24 points, third place. Jackie Meredith, Dewdrops, 24 points, third place. Susan Bestel, Feet of Wonder, 23 points, honorable mention. Benjamin Williams, Grackle, 22 points. Terry Arthur, I Spy a Golden Key, 22 points. Benjamin Williams, Look Out for the Mailbag, 19 points. Gary Wood, Moving On, 20 points. Neil Linebaugh, My Mandatory Dandelion, 23 points, honorable mention. Donna Schneider. My turn. 25 points, second place. Joe Miko, Oak Island Lighthouse, 20 points. Andrew Garoy, Rhino at Play, 19 points. Jane Sidney, Salt Pond, Maine, 19 points. Catherine Kengott, Shaggy, Maine, 20 points. Jill Zepka, Sunset over Marina, 25 points, second place. Jordan Tetzel, Surveillance State, 23 points, honorable mention. Bill Keaton, The Birches Are Watching, 21 points. Lance Mayer, Thistle, 19 points. Catherine Kengott, You Looking at Me? 23 points, honorable mention.
I think this might start comments. Somebody have a swing and a miss?
Yep.
Steven says, caught the swing well, and the blur of the catcher implies his swift reaction to the pitch. Adding a bit more crowd would give a wider perspective of the event in addition to the dugout crew. The catcher is a bit close to the edge of the frame and could use a bit more room.
Paul Gilia, a swing and a miss, 22 points.
Daniel says, the sole figure in the midst of these repetitive patterns gives this photo striking drama. I wonder how it would look in black and white, since it's the story that needs emphasis in this photo. I would also clone out the rooftop piece in the lower left corner.
Glenn Petranik, Assisi, Italy, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bob says, the stream leads my eye right into the photo. The fern on the right adds an interesting element, but very bright. The colors are realistic and not oversaturated.
David Karosik, Enfield Creek, Truman State Park, 22 points.
Steven says, a lot of colorful floating elements in no particular arrangement compositionally. Due to the complexity of the shapes and colors, the cohesive image is difficult to produce. The image is busy and lacks a focal point, a place to land your eyes.
Brian O'Riordan, Feed Me's Cousin, 21 points.
Daniel says, there's a terrific story emerging here. The two lovers are walking amidst this two sets of reeds with this love curve to the walkway. I might darken the trees in the background further to emphasize the main parts of the image.
Lance Mayer, Friends Forever, 21 points.
Bob says this is an interesting perspective of this building. The photographer carefully chose to make this line up. I like the reflections of the clouds on the window panes.
Jennifer Gaba, glass meets metal, 20 points.
Stephen says, a well-exposed image of a landscape with bright highlights and deep dark shadows. The dark, detail-lacking areas of the upper sky and lower terrain cause the eyes to fall to the absolute center of the frame where all the detail is. Those portions may be cropped slightly to simplify and strengthen the composition.
Bob Kovaleski, Graveyard of the Ancients, 21 points.
Daniel says the color green is clearly the emphasis, as well as the vine growing up the tree. The photo would be strengthened by adding interesting elements. For example, either by experimenting with the angle of the camera, getting real low, or having a narrow depth of field, or anything else your imagination can conjure up.
Eric Wethington, Green in Nature, 18 points.
Bob says this is an interesting library with a wonderful iron or brass grating all around. The section on the right is the brightest element in the image. Perhaps darkening this section of the image and slightly lightening the center area would allow the viewer's eye to focus on the center section.
Ron Wehrman, Library Study Area, 20 points.
Stephen says, a warm-toned image of a sleepy child content with not posing for the photographer. The excess of reds and oranges tend to give the overall image a flatter appearance with the subject melding into the background. These are small details, but ones that weaken an otherwise momentous capture.
Rachel Kovacs, Bill Punkin, 25 points, second place.
Daniel says, this is a very striking landscape that maintains some water detail by not going too slow. The yellow reflection down the middle is effective. The sky is dramatic, as is getting fairly low in perspective. I would like to see a bit more shadow detail in the second hill, as well as brightening it just a bit.
Donna Schneider, Lufton Sunset, 26 points, first place.
Bob says this is a wonderful capture of a cat with a dead rabbit in its mouth. The dead rabbit and the cat's face are the brightest areas of the image, and my eye goes right where the artist wanted it to go.
Eric Botsky, mine, 25 points, second place.
Stephen says, overall, a good capture with soft light to aid in showing off the details of this feathered bird. Compositionally, it is a bit tight, especially above the head and below the tail area. A bit more breathing room would be helpful.
Perched Pelican, Marge Brady, 22 points.
Daniel says the subject is very interesting, as is its isolation with the black background. The side view is like a portrait, and that's effective. I wish I could see more of the face that now is mainly in shadow. Even if you could brighten the area around the eye, that would strengthen the photo.
Ram, Joe Smith, 21 points.
Bob says this image has a painterly quality to it. The model lying on the couch or bed is the center of the interest, and her face is the brightest area of interest. Great image.
Jackie Sayeski, Resting Point, 24 points, third place.
Stephen's comment, a pleasant enough dusk scene capturing the reddening of the blue sky. Compositionally, the elements are in good balance, but there is no single point of interest. The water reflections are okay, but the real interest lies in the skies. I would crop most of the water out and favor highlighting the changing colors in the skyline. Lightening the greens in the trees a bit would also be adding more interest overall.
Jackie Meredith, Sunrise on the Cuyahoga, 21 points.
Daniel says, the fact that you are so close to your subject makes this a strong photo. It's very intimate, and the black-white treatment works. I wish there was a bit more in focus, like the lips, but it's okay because you're so close. I like how the right side of her face blends with the background.
Leslie Nutt, Through the Veil, 23 points. Honorable mention.
Bob says, this is a beautiful simplicity to this image. The lone tree with the triangular rock sand and crops in the image, great nice juxtaposition with the tree.
Wally Now, Tree in the Desert, 24 points, third place.
Stephen says, an interesting green-hued plant lit strongly from above with some interesting shapes and lines. Compositionally, it is a bit cramped, and the left and right portions fall out of the edge of the frame. A bit more breathing room would be helpful.
Gary Wood, Twisted, 21 points.
Daniel says, this is the kind of photo where mood is everything. The fog works, as does the overall green hue. I might crop just a bit from both the left and right to make this a more vertical photo, something that would be harmonious with the verticality of the trees. I'd clone out the distracting branch in the upper right corner.
Kent Hill, West Virginia Trail, 25 points, second place.
Bob's comment, the subject's eyes are looking right into the camera. What are they saying or asking? I'm not sure. The added texture adds anything to the image, though.
Gary Merrick, Zach, 21 points.
And that concludes our competition for this evening. I don't think I mentioned earlier, I'm really just grateful to see how many people turned out tonight. This is